Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are around the globe. Welcome to our session this afternoon. My name is Mel Gow. I'm the CEO of AVI, and I'd like to begin our time together by acknowledging the traditional custodians throughout Australia. And I'd like to, in particular, pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the country on which AVI's head office is located. Sovereignty was never ceded. We stand on Aboriginal land, always was, always would be. So welcome again to afternoon. We've got some really terrific panelists that I'd like to introduce you to in just a moment. But just to tell you, first of all, a little bit about Australian Volunteers International, AVI, in case you don't know who we are. AVI are an international development organisation that is committed to sustainably strengthening the capacity of partners around the globe. And we've been doing this for over 75 years now. The primary way in which we do that is by offering our partners skilled volunteers in whatever form our partners would like to take that offering of skill capacity strengthening. And so our session today is with one of our longest partners, a really special organisation called REACH in Vietnam, with whom AVI has been partnering with for over 16 years. Offering skilled volunteers to that partner organisation. We're going to have a great conversation today with three extraordinary panellists. At the end of the session, there will be loads of opportunity for you all, our wonderful audience, and welcome to every single one of you, to ask questions. So if you do have questions, just pop them in to the questions into the chat, and I'll seek to work through those at the end of the our wonderful panelists to answer those. But let me start by introducing Ms. Tam. She is the CEO of REACH Vietnam. She's had intensive experience in training, educating disadvantaged youth, as well as project management. Ms. Tam has successfully led REACH to expand and support more than 21,000 youth from underprivileged backgrounds across Vietnam since 2004. Welcome, Tam. It is so wonderful to have you with us. And I had the sheer delight of meeting Tam in person twice now, once in Australia and a couple of weeks ago in Hanoi, where I spent time in the REACH Centre, which was fantastic. And we'll share a little bit more about that. But welcome, Tam.
Thank you so much, Mel. Yeah.
Our second panellist is Din Ha, a REACH program graduate. Din was a REACH graduate in sales and marketing, and he's going to share a little bit more about that very, very soon. He's also recently returned from Melbourne, where he was an RMIT scholar and studied for some years at RMIT following his course at REACH. And most recently, he's been offered an internship at Ernst & Young, and he'll take up that role shortly back here in Australia. That is an example of the incredible graduates that have come through the REACH program, and I can't wait to hear more from Din. So wonderful to have you with us also. And finally, our fabulous volunteer, Paul O'Hare. Paul is a former AVI volunteer with REACH. He volunteered with REACH between 2009 and 2011. And interestingly, Paul started volunteering with REACH on his weekends, while he was actually already volunteering with another AVI partner. One partner wasn't enough. On his weekends, he started volunteering with REACH. And again, I'm sure he'll tell us all about that. Paul has actually done 5 AVI volunteer placements throughout the years. And while he was with REACH, he was an English language and vocational trainer. And welcome also, Paul. So terrific to have you with us also.
Thank you, Mel. Wonderful to be here.
To some questions that I'm going to ask all of our terrific panelists. We are going to share a little video with you about REACH and just to highlight some of their extraordinary work. But first to just say that AVI really prides itself on building trusted long-term relationship with our partners and supporting rather than driving the development process. We recognise that actually sustainable change is only brought about when our partners get to drive the development process, and we are there to support that. So today we really want to shine a light on REACH. As I said earlier, we've been partnering with REACH since 2009. And in that time, we've facilitated 16 volunteer assignments from 11 different Australian volunteers. And their roles have ranged from marketing and fundraising to curriculum development to sales and marketing, strategic management mentors. They've done a lot in working with REACH during that period. REACH has really evolved over the years. And Tam will tell you a lot more about that shortly, but starting from quite humble beginnings, it has grown into an extraordinary social enterprise, and AVI's volunteers have been with REACH throughout that time, supporting that growth and that impact. And so it's an absolute privilege to have Tam ask you a few questions. I know we're going to ask you to tell us a little bit about the next video. Thank you so much.
Nơi nuôi dưỡng những mầm xanh hy vọng, cho những ước mơ bay cao và bay xa, cùng nhau vững tin bước vào tương lai. REACH, vì tương lai của bạn. Trung tâm REACH, nơi đào tạo nghề nghiệp và giới thiệu việc làm cho thanh niên có hoàn cảnh khó khăn. Trải qua hành trình 10 năm nỗ lực và công hiến, REACH trở thành địa chỉ tin cậy cho các thanh niên có khao khát lập thân, lập nghiệp. Từ một trung tâm nhỏ tại Hà Nội, năm 2008 với chỉ 5 nhân sự, sau 10 năm, REACH đã có mặt ở 6 tỉnh thành trên toàn quốc, mở rộng từ 3 ngành nghề lên 11 ngành nghề đào tạo, đa dạng trong các lĩnh vực. Lĩnh vực máy tính có lớp thiết kế đồ họa 2D, đồ họa 3D, thiết kế lập trình website, chỉnh sửa video. Học viên được học các phần mềm chỉnh sửa ảnh, dựng hình thời trang, bất động sản, chỉnh sửa video và các phần mềm liên quan để trở thành nhân viên thiết kế, chỉnh sửa ảnh, video hay lập trình web. Lĩnh vực nhà hàng khách sạn có các lớp học nghiệp vụ nhà hàng và pha chế, chế biến món ăn, buồng phòng và nghiệp vụ khách sạn 5 sao. Lĩnh vực làm đẹp có lớp làm tóc, vẽ móng và lớp spa, chăm sóc da sẽ hướng dẫn các kỹ năng cần thiết để các em có thể làm việc tại các salon tóc lớn hoặc các spa chuyên nghiệp. Lĩnh vực kinh doanh có lớp bán hàng marketing sẽ trang bị các kiến thức, kỹ năng bí quyết bán hàng, chăm sóc khách hàng để học viên trở thành người bán hàng chuyên nghiệp, biết ứng dụng kỹ thuật bán hàng qua điện thoại và thương mại điện tử. Không chỉ được học và thực hành nghề, các em sẽ được học tiếng Anh, tin học và các kỹ năng mềm cần thiết. Đặc biệt, một số ngành nghề sẽ được trao chứng chỉ quốc tế. Các học viên sẽ được hỗ trợ 100% học phí hoặc hoàn lại một phần học phí sau khi đi làm có lương. Bên cạnh đó, REACH cũng hỗ trợ hướng nghiệp và giới thiệu việc làm sau tốt nghiệp cho các học viên của mình trong mạng lưới 1.000 đối tác tuyển dụng. Đến nay, REACH đã đào tạo và hỗ trợ hàng nghìn thanh thiếu niên có hoàn cảnh khó khăn mỗi năm. Trên 80% học viên tốt nghiệp có công việc ổn định. Trên 50% học viên tốt nghiệp có sự thăng tiến và tăng lương sau một năm làm việc. Nhiều bạn đã trở thành giám sát, quản lý, nhóm trưởng với mức thu nhập cao. REACH mong muốn trở thành ngôi nhà thứ hai, nơi luôn mở cánh cửa đón chào những thanh niên có hoàn cảnh khó khăn, giúp họ chắp thêm đôi cánh, trang bị thêm những hành trang để họ vững tin, vững bước vào cuộc đời. Rich, vì tương lai của bạn.
What a fantastic video. Tam, I'm going to turn to you, if I may, and ask you to just tell us a little bit more about the work of REACH and what it does.
Thank you so much, Mel and AVI, to choose REACH today as case study, and it's great pleasure and honor for me to share with you about REACH work in Vietnam. And as you see in the video, we targeted at the young people coming from very disadvantaged background, 18 from 25 years old, and they come from poor family. They may living with disability, or they are domestic violence victim, or they come from poorly rural area that they don't have a chance for their future. So we targeted at the diversify of disadvantaged background, and how we help them. So we design different training program, market-driven training program. And at the moment, we have different training program last from 3 months to 6 months. And at which we not just teach them technical skill, but we also equip them with soft skill, life skill training. We also equip them with language training. And of course, technical training is a core part of the program. But before we send them for job, we also equip them with work readiness training to make sure that they can cope with different difficult situations at work, and also prepare for interview and ready for work. And then we also, after that, we connect them with different job opportunities to make sure that 100% of our graduates have a job opportunities, and make sure that at least 80% of them stay in the job after finishing our program. Yeah, and at the moment we have trained nearly 20,000 disadvantaged young people, and 80% of them get job. And every year about 1,000 youth coming through our program.
Extraordinary, Tam. And we know that there's obviously a lot of need across Vietnam. So how do you actually select the participants for the program? How do you determine which children will enter?
Yeah, with which we, as I mentioned, we targeted at disadvantaged young people. So that's why we not just make sure that we achieve the targeted number per year, but the more important is how to get it at the right targeted group, how to select the most disadvantaged young people. So we set very clear criteria. And you know that with the history of running the program for nearly 17 years, we have a big alumni group, and 80% of the newcomer coming from the alumni network, they came to REACH, they know REACH, and they know who are needed for the program. So from word of mouth, and also from alumni activities, alumni campaign, 80% of the newcomer coming through this channel. And then we also have a very thorough evaluation process. We have a deep interview with individual. And then the most important part is to have a home visit after the interview, to make sure that we verify their circumstance. But for us, it's more important is to build a trusting relationship between the program and the family. And also to help our staff, our manager and facilitator to really understand individual circumstance. So it builds the accountability during the program. Yeah.
Earlier on, you talked about REACH being market-driven, which is why it's so successful in placing so many of the graduates into work. I therefore know that your corporate partners, your industry partners are really important. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with your corporate partners to create the vocational training programs?
Yeah, so we call training partner or program partner or job placement partner, because you know that we also have a funding partner, we have a volunteer partner, AVI. But when you mention about that part, that's we call training partner. You know that, as I mentioned, our program is a market-driven program. So we always doing market scan. We always look at what is the market need before we designing the specific program. So we connect with the business right at the beginning of before we designing the program, to really understand the need of the business, the needs of different employer. And then we also work with the business like a Hinton to develop the program that match with the need of the market, also match the need of the capacity of, and also the capacity of our learner. Yeah, so we build that relationship, and during the training program, we also invite them to become our guest lecturer or organize few visits for our students and involve them into the whole process. And then at the end of the training, they also come as a judging for the evaluate the graduate before we send them for job. And then we not just stop there. When we place our student at job at those corporate partner, we also have a following up activities. We have a 6 month to 1 year closely follow up 100% our graduate to get feedback and also to support them if they need. And especially we always working with the corporate partner to get their feedback, so we keep improving our training program to reduce the gap between the training also the need of the employers. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tam. And Tin, you actually completed the REACH program. Can you tell us a little bit about your time at REACH, what you learned, what you studied?
And yes, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting me, for sharing my experience when I study at REACH. To be honest, come back the year 2018, I study sales and marketing course at REACH. And frankly speaking, the time at REACH very, very meaningful to me, because I got the chance to work with different people coming from different backgrounds like me, especially young people with disability. And I think after 3 months, I'm more mature because I know a lot of skills such as communication skill. Also, I could learn English as well, which is my favorite subject. And after 3 months, so I graduated and I went to the labor markets, which is Suntory PepsiCo, which is one of the most famous companies all over the world. And I work as a sales consultant. Yeah, I very like my job. Yeah.
That's great. And Tin, you were able to get a scholarship to RMIT in Melbourne. Tell us a little bit about that, and what did you study at RMIT?
Yes, so now I think it's a long journey for me, because when the year 2022, I applied for RMIT scholarship with a REACH partner with REACH. And so I have to say thank you, REACH and RMIT, because they gave me the opportunity to study and to make my dream come true, with coming to university to pursue my dream. And so currently, yeah, I am studying Bachelor of Business at the RMIT University, both Hanoi campus and in Melbourne campus. Yeah.
That is fantastic. And I understand it was through an Australian volunteer that the awareness of that scholarship came about.
Yeah.
That's great. Tam, back to you if I can. REACH has hosted a number of Australian volunteers in a whole range of different roles. What type of contribution did they make to REACH? And do you feel that they helped strengthen the partnership with Australian organisations also?
Yeah, I don't have enough words to express how enormous the contribution we get from these AVI volunteers in particular. Actually, we have about 28 assignment volunteer coming from Australian government funded volunteer programs, and 17 coming from AVI, we call AVP program. And it's an enormous contribution. I think we cannot be as what we are today without this type of contribution. Since at the beginning, even we don't have also very first volunteer, and then we have a volunteer from when we still project under Plan International, and then even before REACH name, they come to help us with branding, with communication, with building the system, coaching, and also building the capacity of our staff, of our organization, and also business, also partnership development, and strategic advisor, and also management advisor. So many things, so many things, and that's in terms of skill and expertise. But for us, not just that, but we also learn a lot of things from them. We learn their professional style, we learn their dedication, their passion. They are willing to take more responsibility. And as I shared with you before, that I feel that like they are willing to take more responsibility, and they do much more than the initial assignment expect them to do. So we have an enormous contribution from these volunteers. Yeah.
Thank you, Tam, so much. Paul, Tam just shared with us that you were Reach's first ever volunteer. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about? And I was saying in my introduction that you started on weekends, which is what I learned. But Paul, tell us a little bit more about how it happened.
Okay, thanks, Mel. Look, in 2007, I was assigned to the Hue University College of Foreign Languages as an English language lecturer. And probably after about 6 months after I started, there was an in-house seminar going on. And during one of the breaks, a charming young lady approached me who introduced herself as a recent graduate from the college, and started speaking about the organization that she was working for, which was Reach. She sort of gave me a very rough idea of what they did, and said, look, it'd be fantastic if you could come along to one of our classes. The students would be very, very excited to meet and actually speak to a foreigner for essentially the first time in their lives. And look, I had to very politely decline, because part of the terms of conditions of placement was we weren't supposed to engage with any other organization whilst on assignment. So as I said, I gently declined, but she was charmingly persistent. Now this is Miss Cook. No, I don't. Tom will remember Miss Cook, a very charming young lady, and she was the English language coordinator. So I relented, and I said, okay, I'll come. Let me know. So she gave me the address, and in fact picked me up on her motorbike one Saturday, I think it was. So when I went there, engaged in a class, it was great. I really, really enjoyed it, and I thought, well, there was a bit of value, and the purpose was achieved, and that the kids did interact with an English speaker for the first time. So as we were leaving, she said, you know, are you usually free on a Saturday afternoon? And I said, well, yeah. So, well, how about next week? Anyway, long story short, it became a regular gig, three times a week during my free times. And to be honest, Mel, you can close your ears at the moment. I told her, keep it very quiet. I'm not supposed to be here. So,
did you break protocol, Paul?
I broke protocol. And I'm happy to say it 16 years after the event. So anyway, so it became a regular thing, and it complemented what I was doing at the university, and certainly didn't compromise my responsibilities to the university. But anyway, as my university assignment was drawing to a close, they started saying, we don't know what we're going to do without you, blah blah blah. I said, well, look, why don't you put in an application for an AVI assignment of your own? No, we don't know how to do it. So anyway, I put them in touch with AVI Hanoi, and they talked to each other, and so I supported them in the application in terms of putting it together, etc. And lo and behold, they were approved for the assignment. And I went home to Melbourne, saw the job advertised, and applied in a very competitive environment. And yeah, lo and behold, I got the gig again. So,
and the rest is history.
So and the rest is history. So it was very fortuitous. I mean, it was great. But in terms of Reach at the time, and I mean, okay, it's 16 years after the event, but a lot of the things that Tom has just been talking about in terms of modern day Reach, it resonates with me in terms of what I observed and what I sensed, in those very, very early days, in terms of their commitment to the most disadvantaged youth at the time. And I was just so impressed, having had a 25-year career in employment and training in Australia, that the nexus that seemed to be there in terms of training and employment. That really resonated with me. And in terms of things like, their whole approach seemed so strategic with very, very limited resources. You know, from the, Tom was talking about, you asked the question, how did you recruit? And I found out that Ms. Cook and Mr. Yum and one or two others, they would go to a series of fishing villages outside of Hawaii to visit the families of young people who had applied for a place. They would physically go to their house to check out if they had a television or if they had a fridge, or as a way of determining how disadvantaged they were. And that's how they chose the candidates, the very, very most disadvantaged. And then the actual training, again, so strategic and so targeted in terms of employment, giving real skills, real life skills. And then also so strategic in having Mr. Young almost full-time canvassing his contacts in the hospitality and tourism industry to secure places for the graduates. I was just overwhelmed by the commitment that I saw with that, and that really cemented my own commitment to doing the best I could do.
Oh, it's fantastic. And my observation would be nothing has changed 16 years later. Going out to homes, they're still canvassing with business to make the conversation. Tam, can I just come back to you quickly? There's a lot of Australian volunteers who've not just done one assignment with Reach, but they keep offering continued support, either formally through, you know, more than one assignment, or informally. Can you tell us why you think the Australian volunteers continue to do this with Reach?
Yeah, so we formally, we also have some AVI volunteers. They come back to Reach one time or two times, even 3 assignments. Like, for example, Paul, right at the beginning, right? He worked formally, informally with us, and then he applied for former AVI assignment. We also have some other volunteer who worked with us like more than 10 years ago. And then after 10 years, she applied another assignment to come back to work with the Reach, because I believe they love what we are doing. They love our social impact, and they love the relationship between, even like a personal relationship between the staff at Reach. And then not just from assignments, but we have volunteers. All of the volunteers, they become Reach ambassador. When they come back to their home country, they still stay as a friends. They bring new opportunity for us, even they are not working on the AVI assignment anymore, but they still keep supporting us, especially when we have a fundraising campaign. They become ambassador and then connecting with the individuals, and then also if they find any new partnership that add value to Reach, they connect us. And you know that not that kind of relationship with AVI, former AVI volunteers, but they also help us to connect with many Australian friends and organizations. And you know that like all of the Australian ambassadors in Hanoi are Reach friends. One Australian ambassador named Craig Cheatic, he often come to Reach and salon with his family member, talking with our students, and so doing his haircut and haircut. Yeah. And then also Boroman is another Australian ambassador in Hanoi. He came to our nail art class, and then even he painted his nail, you know. Yeah, so wonderful. And then also Australian volunteer also connect us with some design company in Australia to help us with design work if we need. And then we keep chatting and talking with each other. Even myself, I still stay in touch with the first volunteer. Her name is Tammy Malone. He's the person who helped us with branding with the Reach name. And I often joke with her that, Tammy, you are Reach name's mother. Yeah. And even when I go to Australia, I also stayed in her home for a few days. And when she come here, she also visit me and stay with me. So we have become, personally, we also become kind of long life friends. And in terms of rich organizations, we have such a beautiful relationship with those volunteers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Tab. And I did see one of our audience members send a little already, so it's still being identified as something really powerful. Paul, can I ask you, how did your volunteer experience impact your life? And do you have any advice for anybody else considering volunteering internationally?
Well, I mean, you mentioned before, I've had 5 volunteer assignments, all with AVI. The first was a year in East Java in Indonesia, working in an Islamic school as part of the Australian government's endeavours to establish stronger links between the people of East Java and the Australian people, following the Bali bombings a couple of years before. That was a fantastic experience. And when I came home to Australia, I thought, well, you know, I want to do this again. It becomes very infectious, and the whole experience and the whole cross-cultural experience becomes very, very, very strong. So I had this strong sense I wanted to do this again. So just by coincidence, an assignment came up in Vietnam with the College of Foreign Languages, and really my last assignment finished in 2019 at the Da Nang College of Tourism, where I was teaching English for tourism there. So it can really capture you in terms of you know, a sense of purpose, a sense of value of what you're doing, a sense of self-development, a sense of doing something that's really worthwhile and sustainable, because the whole AVI assignment ethos is about sustainability, and that message is hammered home very early on in the piece, to have that sense of working towards sustainability through everything that you do. So that it was very powerful, and luckily my personal circumstances allowed that continuity to happen. And sorry, the second part of your question was what advice? Is that what it was? Yeah. Okay. So look, my advice to anyone that's thinking about it is, look, there is a real potential for self-development. Let's be blunt. I mean, I'm being blunt in terms of how much one gets out of a volunteer assignment. You know, we can talk about the altruism and the development goals, but the reality is that the volunteer, I've always had the view that the volunteer actually gets more out of an assignment than what the recipients of the assistance will receive. So it's a two-way street, first of all, to be honest. It's an opportunity to really immerse oneself in another culture. It's an opportunity to put our own culture and our own lifestyles into a different perspective, which in itself is a big development, is a big issue of personal development and understanding of and one's life. But having said all of that, and all of the idealism that one might feel about volunteering, a word of caution. It's really important to consider the timing of volunteering. A lot of people have a sense, oh, I want to go and do this. But it's really important that you reflect on your own circumstances before committing to a volunteer assignment. Things like your financial situation. The allowances of the AVI allowances are very adequate, but in terms of so maintaining a mortgage, for example, or getting your kids to school or whatever, paying school fees, etc., it's not going to work. So you really got to work out, number one, is it financially sustainable? Number two, is the family on board? For example, if you have a partner, is the partner going to be on board? Either you going away or the partner possibly going with you, etc. Things like elderly or infirm parents. All of those sort of issues have to come into play before you make that decision. And of course, it's really important that you do your research in terms of the country you're going into, the challenges that exist, the nature of the job, etc., etc. So you really got to do your homework before you sort of jump in. But having said all of that, if the coast is clear, go for it without question. And of course, from memory, AVI still has a system whereby they will put you in contact with previous volunteers in that region to get true life reflections on what it's really like there. And for better or for worse. I mean, you really need, as so part of this research idea, that you know to a large extent what you're letting yourself in for, because the worst thing that can happen is an early return. That's, I'll throw it in. I was actually an AVI recruiter for 4 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. There you go.
Between 2011 and 2015. So I kept hammering home this idea of make sure you know what you're in for, because what we don't want, and what you certainly don't want, is an early return. You jump in and you got to stick with it. So make sure you're well prepared.
Thank you, Paul.
That's a bit long, but
no, that's great. It's really sound and practical advice.
Got to put it out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Tina, I'm going to come to you again, and I want to ask you, you've come back to Vietnam recently, so tell us a little bit about your future plans. You've finished with your REACH graduation, you've finished at RMIT. What's going to happen for you next, Tin?
Yes, honestly, I am having my own plans when I graduate from RMIT. For example, I want to continue to work and to become a manager in the future. So currently, I'm working as a tax intern position at Indian young company. So I'm gonna continue to do that to gain more experience, and maybe in the future I can apply my skill and also my experience for my future job, like as a trainee manager. Yeah, I'm gonna apply, and I'm finding some information from previous companies such as Suntory PepsiCo. They're gonna offer some kind of program to train manager, which is manager trainee. I'm gonna apply for that, and I try to make my dream come true. Yeah.
Tin, you are inspirational. It's been fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much. Tam, just to you again. Now, you have been with REACH for over 20 years, and you've seen the organisation grow and evolve. What's motivated you to stay with REACH for all of that journey?
Wow, that's a long journey. Yeah, I spent my whole young age with REACH. Yeah, and let me share a little bit my story how I started with REACH and this program. Back in 2004, I started as a very junior position at Plan International. I worked for Labs program. Actually, Lab is a former project before we set up REACH. So I started as sales and marketing trainer. I work directly and train 200 youth. And I work directly with them. I understand them. I come to visit their home. I go for lunch with them, and then I take them for jobs. So I support about 200 youth before I become a manager. And I took the initiative and set up REACH as an independent organization, because you know that After 4 years running as a project under Plan International, we make decision for the future of the program. It's not sustainable if it's under Plan International organization. So we make decision to set up the organization, and then I become Rich Executive Director in 2008. And then I continue my job, my passion with the organization, because the main reason is after in the last nearly 20 years, I have a chance to witness the transformation of many young people life like a thing, and also many young people, like 1,000 per year. We have a student coming from disability, coming from domestic violence victims, and you know that they lack the opportunity. And if many of them, even they have never worked in a day before they join our program, not because they don't have a will, but they don't have the chance. So for it, we try to create that chance for them. And every day for me to see the transformation in the life of the young people give me a lot of motivation and inspiration. Every time Ting or any other student come back to our program and say that, teacher, we got a job. I have a salary to support myself. I got a salary to support my sibling, my parents, and every day we want to hear that. That is the main motivation for me to continue my job in the last 20 years, which it come from that small stories. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tam. That's extraordinary. And it is incredible that you have almost 1,000 students a year through. Over 80% of them end up in long-term, meaningful, sustainable jobs. It's quite an extraordinary.
Apologies, everyone. I think we might have just lost Mel. Hopefully she'll be able to get back on in a second. In the meantime, whilst we're waiting for Mel, I might share a video that Dam has very kindly shared with us.
My name is Thao. At age 15, I had no future and no choice. My family was barely surviving on $1 a day. I had to drop out of school and find work so we could eat. So I found casual work as a rubbish collector. It was tough and dangerous, with long hours and a tiny income, but at least we could now afford one meal a day. My father died when I was young, and my mother just sold vegetables in the street. I couldn't see my own future. I'd run out of dreams. Then one day, a friend said I should apply to the Rich Vocational Training Center. He said they would help me find a future by training skills that proper employers need. As soon as I walked through their doors, I knew my life was about to change. For 6 months, I learned how to do 3D modeling using the latest software. We met prospective employers who gave advice on what knowledge was needed to succeed in the industry. After I graduated, Rich found me a job with a good salary at a multinational IT company in Hanoi. Now I go to work and draw 3D models of houses and offices that our customers are dreaming of. With my first paycheck, I repaired our leaky roof and started a school fund for my brother so he can stay in school. My name is Thao. I'm a 3D graphics designer.
I am a video editor.
I am a web coder.
I am a hairdresser.
I am a beauty therapist.
I am a waiter.
I am a chef.
I am a housekeeper.
I am a bartender.
I am a salesperson.
I am a 3D modeling designer.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Great. So you'll notice that I've changed chairs. I got booted out midstream. So sincere apologies. We're just, we're just rolling with it. Now, we do actually have a question from our wonderful audience. Thank you so much for the video. And Tam, I'm going to have to rewatch it because I was madly racing around trying to find a new computer while that wonderful video is playing. I've got a question from Alison. Thank you very much, Alison. I'm wondering if online volunteering is an option if a volunteer can't manage to be located in Vietnam. That is a very timely question because actually at this point in time, we're looking at placing 2 remote volunteers, as we call them, with reach in particular. So remote volunteering or virtual volunteering is definitely something that is very, very possible. And a number of our partner organisations have great technology, not like Melbourne here, who are actually able to support remote volunteers. And we know that it's actually a really popular form of volunteering in Vietnam. But Tam, do you have a perspective on remote volunteering?
Thank you very much, Mel. Actually, we had online volunteers from the Australian AVI program. We also have online volunteer, especially during COVID situation, and also from other volunteer programs. So we are welcome for the volunteer to come to work with it directly here or online volunteer. Based on the need of the organization, we can design the assignment that match the need of the organization of reach and also our social enterprise and also the circumstance of the volunteer that cannot come in country volunteer program. Yeah.
Thanks, Tam, so much. Tin, I've got a question for you from Leanne. How did your internship with Ernst & Young come about? I can imagine it must have been very, very competitive. How did that actually happen?
Yes, honestly, it's very competitive when I have to compete with another candidate. Just so you know, another candidate, they come from different background, which is because they gain a lot of experience better than me. However, when I decided to apply for that job, I have to study and practice a lot. And I asked my friend that I asked them to, can you send your document for me, and I'm gonna study it by myself. So I study day and night during my free times. And so before interview, and I have to do real test. They want to test my experience and also my knowledge in terms of tax and custom. And luckily, I practice it regularly and I understand the concept, and I pass the test and go to one interview, and after 2 weeks to wait the final result. So luckily I got the result and I passed the interview, and yeah, I love it. Yeah.
It's so impressive because it would have been such a competitive process, I know, Din. So congratulations, really well done. I've got a couple of questions here from panelists who are from other countries, Zimbabwe, America, asking if they can volunteer. Unfortunately, not through the Australian Volunteers Program. We only accept Australian citizens, but your countries would have, I'm sure, their own volunteering programs, particularly in the US. There's also another question here about whether or not we're still sending volunteers to Vietnam, given the focus on the Pacific. Absolutely. We've still got a number of volunteer placements in Vietnam, in Cambodia, and in other parts of Southeast Asia. So Vietnam is still very much an option for volunteering. So if you're interested, you can jump onto AVI's website or to the Australian Volunteers Program website and take a look at opportunities. There are also, Tam, just a question here about, in your opening video, we saw the hairdressing salon, we saw the chefs, we saw people sitting at computers. Can you just expand a little bit further on the various social enterprises that Reach has actually invested in themselves?
Yeah, so I think that you had a chance to visit also our hair salon. Yeah. And you know that Vietnam become middle income country, and we always thinking how to be more sustainable, how we maintain our mission of supporting disadvantaged young people, and less relying on international grant and international donation. We keep thinking about that like 10 years ago, and we come up with different strategy how to be more sustainable financially. And one of the strategy is to have our own income generation. And we started the first social enterprise in 2017. And you know that not every social enterprise is successful. We started with 4 social enterprise, but because of the COVID situation, we have to close down 2. And currently we have 2 very good social enterprise. That's the M Salon that you visited. And actually M Salon is also inspired by one of our students called, her name is M. She was also domestic violence victim. And then her story also, she also gone through our hairdressing training program and become professional hairdresser. And her story inspires to start M Salon. And with M Salon, we also provide service to the normal client. But through that model, we also training the young people to become professional hairdresser. Yeah. And the second social enterprise at the moment we have is Views. View is architectural visualization social enterprise, and we serve the international client. We provide world-class 3D service to clients around the world. We have clients from Australia, from New Zealand, from Europe, like Switzerland, France, Germany. And through this social enterprise, 30% of Views staff are rich graduates. And through this social enterprise, we also synergize with rich training program. You see that at the rich training program, we also have a 2D class. We also have 3D training class. So we synergize with the training we do at rich to support the training there, but also for the long term, we expect that the social enterprise will also contribute financially to support rich finance, to support more young people. So we call this social enterprise a hybrid social enterprise with the social arm and also financial arm. Yeah.
That's fantastic, Tam, because it obviously makes a very sustainable ongoing model where the social enterprises are expected to reinvest in the broader program. It's terrific. Thank you. I've also got a question here about the 2 roles that Reach is currently, we're talking to Reach about at the moment. They'll both be remote. They'll both be virtual volunteers. The first one is monitoring, evaluation and learning mentor. And the second one is a communications development mentor. So we're in discussions with Reach about trying to fill both of those remote volunteer roles for you at the moment. And they'll be available on the website. We are so close to time, I have to say, but I do sincerely want to thank our extraordinary panelists. It's been a fantastic conversation this afternoon. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And even though, Tam, we've met a couple of times and I've got to spend some time at Reach, I still learnt more this afternoon from you. You are always so inspirational. Thank you so much. Din, just what you have been able to achieve from beginning your sort of 3 6-month program with Reach through your RMIT scholarship and now where you are now is quite extraordinary, and sincere congratulations. I know lots of us will absolutely listen with absolute interest in terms of what continues to happen with your extraordinary career. And Paul, fantastic to hear from a volunteer who's clearly so passionate and was so passionate at the time and remains really committed to the concept of volunteering. So I just want to say thank you so much to each of our panelists. It's been a delight. To our wonderful audience for joining us, thank you so much. I hope you've found it as engaging as I certainly have. And I just want to say, if you registered for the session today, you will get an email from AVI, and as part of that you will be invited, if you would like to donate to the work of Reach. The donations would be entirely tax deductible, You will, if you donate, receive a tax invoice from AVI, but the money will go to Reach. And you'll see that I'm saying that in front of the Reach CEO, so you know it must be true. So you can certainly donate directly to Reach. The tax invoice will come for us, but the money is going to Reach. And also just a little plug for AVI, of course. We are also a for-purpose organisation here in Australia, so we are always encouraging of support and donations, and thank you to the many audience who clearly do give to us already. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, audience and panelists. It's been terrific. And I think there's going to be just a short slideshow as we end our session here this afternoon from my wonderful time with Reach in Vietnam recently. But thank you, Tam, Tin and Paul. It's been terrific.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.